Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for our session today. We are going to give folks just about a minute since it did just turn noon for me here on the West Coast. We want to give folks some time to trickle in from the waiting room. So in the meantime, thanks for hanging. Get comfortable. We will be kicking off in, I'll give it like 30 seconds. But in the meantime, we are so excited to have you here and can't wait to get started with today's event. I'm seeing folks still trickling in, so I'm going to continue to chat for just 15 more seconds or so, and then we will kick off our time today. And I think we are good to get started. All right, awesome. I am so happy to see you all here. Hello, everybody. My name is Brinton Botkin. I use she, her pronouns, and I am on the student marketing team here at Handshake. I am so excited to welcome you here for our session today. I want to start with some quick notes just for level setting about what to expect during this session, and then we can get into introducing our fabulous speaker for the day. We're going to have about 20 minutes of more organized discussion, prepared discussion questions. And then we'll save about 10 minutes at the end of this session for Q&A from you, the audience. So if you have questions that come up throughout the session, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen. And we will do our best to get to as many as we can before we wrap. You won't see anybody else's questions as they submit them because we have to mark them as answered before you'll see them. So please don't think we're ignoring you. We tend to get a lot of questions. We will do our best to get to as many as we can. With that out of the way, I know it can be really daunting during fall recruiting to see the breadth of all the different types of roles and industries and backgrounds, when it comes to your job search. And so this fall, we have this cool role spotlight series in order to showcase firsthand accounts of different types of career paths, different positions, and different industries. And today is my fabulous colleague. Today's panelist is my fabulous colleague. Today itself, the day, is not my colleague. Today's panelist is my fabulous colleague, a senior product marketing manager here at Handshake. With that, Emily Ann, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give us maybe a little bit of background on you and what you're doing at Handshake today?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to be chatting with you all today and sharing some of my background and experience for product marketing. So my name is Emily Ann. It is, in fact, a double name. So by way of quick personal introduction, I'm originally from Alabama in the South. And that, southernness, my double name follows me everywhere. I now live in New York City, where I've lived and worked for the last 6.5 years. Absolutely love living there. And we'll get to it later, but even just that move alone has been part of my own kind of personal journey, specifically with my career. Brenton just mentioned I am a product marketer here at Handshake, and I will give my kind of quick rundown on what I believe that actually means. I know that some people are like, what's product marketing? I know what marketing is. We're adding a word in front of it. I can't study maybe PMM or product marketing at my school. How can I learn more? I will say at the get-go, there's probably lots of different definitions of product marketing based on who you ask, what industry that they work on. But the way that I would kind of define PMM is that in 3 bullet points here, you are really the spokesperson of the product that you're marketing at your company. You are, secondly, the glue between so many different internal teams. Think product, engineering, other marketing folks. And ultimately, a PMM is a storyteller. You know how to tell a really creative and compelling story about your product to your audience that's going to really resonate with them and explain to them why they should care. And so there's lots of foundational layers to product marketing that are baked into that, like sales enablement and some things that you might start to learn about in your own career development around pricing and how you talk to other folks in an organization. But that is kind of my breakdown of product marketing. You're a spokesperson, you're the glue, and you're ultimately a storyteller for your product.
I love this so much because I feel like product marketing is one of those job titles that you might hear and just it feels like a hand wavy kind of question about what it actually, means. And so thank you for that overview, Emily Ann. I'd love to dig into your career path and maybe how you got to where you are now. You mentioned you're originally from Alabama, now you're in New York, you're obviously now at Handshake. How does what you're doing today in your role today align with what you thought you would be doing when you started your career?
Yes, the age-old question. So to start, I will say that personally, I have always dreaded a little bit, even when I was in high school and college. I've dreaded that question of what do you want to do with your life or what do you want your career to be? I found it like way too big of a question to even comprehend when I was in my teens and then throughout my college experience. And sometimes today I even still feel that of, well, what do I want to do in 5, 10, 15 years? Is it still going to be PMM? And so to answer your question, Brenton, I actually my career journey is a little interesting in the sense of figuring out that question and the major and how it all lines up to actually getting a job that I was going to be happy with. So I first went into college, declared nursing, which is quite funny to think about, given that I am not a math gal. And math is important, and this is something that we'll get to later of a misconception that data is incredibly important in marketing, but math specifically in the medicine sense was not my jam. Bed manner would be, bedside manner, top tier. But actually administering the medicine in the correct fashion, maybe not so much. And so I went through this cycle of changing my changing my major, excuse me, quite a few times from different types of things that I was sussing out if they aligned to my personal interests. So was that PR or hotel and restaurant management? And ultimately, I ended up in the College of Business at my university and majored in marketing. So the very short answer to that is that yes, I majored in marketing and now I'm doing marketing. But the longer answer in terms of how I actually got to product marketing specifically was quite windy. I was not really sure of how to match my interests, my strengths, my kind of what personally was fulfilling to me to the work and like the school projects and the experience that I had when I was looking at those job descriptions. And so that led to first kind of looking at entry-level marketing jobs, and then now has led to a more developed kind of marketing skill set in product marketing.
I love it. And I could totally picture you as a nurse, but I am glad that you recognized a weakness in the math.
Yes,
Like
quite
pretty
important.
critical for that career path. Thank you so much for that background. So I want to get into the meat of today's session, which I know is why a lot of folks are here. What does your average day look like as a senior PMM? And like, is there an average day?
Yes. Okay. So the ultimate canned response here that maybe other folks have said too is that no day really is the same. And I think that that's a really fun part of working in product marketing is that you're always working on a different type of initiative. Of course, sometimes there's projects that run for a month or quarters or often not, but could be a year at a time if it's a more general update to something. But generally speaking, no day is exactly the same. And being a product marketer means that I do get to work on several different projects that span initiatives like working with our web design team to update or create new website pages for the products that I own. Or it could mean creating sales collateral for our sales teams to actually go and have a really great conversation with their prospects and their customers. And so thinking through back to that storytelling piece, creating the content means thinking through what's the story that we want to enable our sales team to go and pitch or share with customers. It could also look like hosting a webinar. So doing kind of what we're doing now, but more for customer facing, for prospects, for people that we want to purchase the products. And similarly, creating content and then being kind of the spokesperson, back to that first piece that we talked about earlier, of your product. I will say that the consistent part of my day-to-day is lots of collaboration with teams like product, with marketing campaigns teams, with website, with sales leaders, and several other functions. And that's what is really fun and energizing and gets to be that consistent piece in an otherwise kind of variety of projects type role.
Yeah, I mean, just from an observer and a collaborator perspective, I find that the PMMs in my life who tend to be the strongest are you have to be something of a social butterfly because you're like
Yes.
hopping between teams and projects. but also just like really essential to keeping projects running and moving together and bringing a lot of people along, a lot of different stakeholders. So I love to see that in action. So I'd love to maybe shift the tone a little bit into some real talk. There are always curves and adjustment periods and sometimes challenges as you're navigating a career path. And to your point about product marketing not necessarily being sometimes a career path that people are super knowledgeable about right at the beginning, I'm sure that there were some things that you needed to adjust to and learning curves that you had along the way. Did you have any challenges when you entered this career or this role specifically, and how did you overcome them?
Absolutely. Love talking about this and sharing because like we've said, you at least to my knowledge, you can't really major in product marketing. It's something that you kind of find yourself into, especially in tech, a little bit later into your career. So it's figuring out how do I, if I know that that might be the kind of third job that I want to have, or maybe not even the end goal, but something that I see my career going to, how do I build those other stepping stones to get there? I'll take a little tiny step back in terms of, every path and figuring out that what do you want to do question has its challenges or roadblocks or just things to actually figure out so that you can feel confident and successful. Entering my career, I would say that the one thing I did know is that I wanted to live in a big city. I know that that doesn't have a specific logo or job title to it. Like I said, had majored in marketing. So I guess you could say I knew I wanted to work in marketing and in a big city. And that was a personal challenge of mine is figuring out how to get to a geographical different standpoint in terms of networking, knowing a completely different group of people that's not here where I'm from, finding people with mutual connections. And so I know some people might have a slight eye roll at the networking response there, but it really is so critical in thinking about if there's a specific type of role or a trajectory that you're interested in, connect with people that are in those already entry level positions that you can get your foot in the door and just have really informal coffee chats, not even if there's an actual job open. And so that was kind of my first personal roadblock is how do I put myself into the city and the place where I feel like there's opportunity for these marketing jobs that I want to do. I'll kind of shift gears and talk specifically about product marketing specifically, and then even more specifically in tech, which is what our session is about today. Um, for product marketing in tech, you are often marketing quite technical products, which I know does not sound like the funnest thing out the gate. But I'll share a little story about this challenge for me and how I ended up kind of reframing my own story here. So my career started at WeWork. If you're not familiar, it's a kind of real estate brand company. And I had that first touch point there in my career as a very marketing generalist, marketing coordinator, entry level position. I didn't know I wanted to do product marketing when I took that first job. I was really open to having any type of marketing experience to figure out what I did and didn't like. I was doing everything from email marketing to event logistics to figuring out some of those sales enablement qualities. And when I knew 4 years later that it was time to look for my next opportunity, I started to read with that 4 year experience benchmark, what are the job descriptions that sound interesting to me? And I was reading a lot of product marketing roles. However, I am not coming from a tech background, right? So I was looking for what are those skill sets and experience that they're saying in the job description, maybe in different words, but is the same thing that I already have experience doing. So meaning at WeWork, my title wasn't product marketing coordinator. It was just marketing generalist, marketing coordinator. And so I needed to learn how to tell my personal story to flex those parts of my experience that were relevant to this PMM role at Salesforce that I ended up landing and really kind of set me on the tech path. I'll give just a quick kind of story here for that. So for example, in my experience at Salesforce, I was marketing no code tools to developers. Do I have a background in IT? No. Do I know what developers care about or how they want to be talked to? Also, no. But what I did know is that I knew how to market to other types of audiences that I previously hadn't had experience with. So at WeWork, that looked like marketing to real estate people. I also didn't have experience in that before. And so I had experience, creating different types of content at WeWork. It just wasn't technical content. So it really became my job to kind of figure out how to pivot my story for some of those transferable skills like writing, cross-functional collaboration, public speaking, sales enablement, and then speak it in the words and the lingo that the tech role for PMM had. So I would say, to kind of boil all of that down, a kind of key challenge specifically for tech PMM to really land that role at that point in time was learning how to tell your own personal story and relate it to the words and the language of what they're looking for, and still telling your true story of your experience. But it may not look apples to apples on paper, but there's definitely a way to have that storyteller mentality of overcoming that challenge of, I don't have that exact experience, but you do, just in a different way.
Yeah, I love that. And I did an event yesterday, actually. I'm not sure if anybody here was in the career planning office hours with Christine Cruz Vergara yesterday, but she had a very similar takeaway when it comes to particularly career pivoters. And I know you pivoted your major a couple of times, and as you've kind of carried on your career, you've shifted a little bit. But she mentioned, the importance of language when it comes to demonstrating that you belong somewhere. So like if you're transferring from an academic background into a tech space, meeting with people, understanding how they talk about the problems they're solving. Do they call their users customers or clients or partners? Do they like just really understanding the way that things are done in specific spaces? So I love that that's a through line that you brought in as well as part of
Yeah,
the
that's
journey.
great.
Amazing. So I would love to get into, we have some questions that have come in about this, and you touched on it briefly in this, most recent answer, but skills are a big topic for us. We particularly discuss soft and hard skills a lot in these events. And I'm curious to know if, there are any skills that you rely on day to day as a PMM that might surprise the audience. So can you take that one?
Absolutely. There are two immediate ones that come to mind, but I will think if there's maybe a third, and if not, we'll get to it in the Q&A. The first, and I'm speaking specifically for product marketing here. One could say these apply to marketing in general, but I'll speak in terms of my PMM background. The first skill is writing. I know that might sound a bit daunting, or, oh, I hate writing, or I'm not good at English, or whatever you're kind of taking coursework in. I would say this is not to say that you need to be writing the next great novel. That would be awesome if you were, but you don't need to be, taking extensive writing courses or feel like that's really your top skill. It is a great one to have to be a product marketer, though. I've learned that being able to write succinctly and clearly and just say what you need to say, whether that's in a Slack to a coworker internally or to an executive, or to a customer in a product pitch deck, being able to copyright, pick up edits, how can we say this more clearly? The skill of writing has really helped me put ideas on paper quickly to share and collaborate with others. It's been a transferable skill that I've seen come up in interviews of, this is really kind of the foundation to PMM. We expect you to be able to write clearly, again, whether that's internal or external. So that'd be my first one. I do have to say personally, I have always enjoyed just journaling. Again, not writing the next novel over here, the next Harry Potter, but I have always enjoyed writing in my spare time, not extensively. And so if you have any sort of portfolio or just something that comes to mind of, oh, I like having a Substack, or I like writing on Medium, or I like writing posts on Handshake's feed, those are all good examples of where you can kind of hone that craft as you're learning to explore how to talk about a topic that you like. The second skill I would say that also might be a little surprising, or at least it was to me, especially where I am in my career now, is executive presence. And I do have to say, oh, do you have something to say, Brenton?
I was just gonna say, can you do like a primer on executive presence for folks who might not interact
Absolutely.
with executives? Thank you.
Absolutely. reading my mind. So I was going to say I had absolutely no idea what those two words meant put together in a sentence when I was in school. What does executive presence actually mean? I'm sure that there's a much better definition of this on the internet, but I would define it as the way that you carry yourself. Right now, it's in a square because we're hybrid and we're on Zoom. This also definitely means the kind of standard answer of in a boardroom or a meeting. Um, and it's back to that idea of being able to clearly and succinctly verbally communicate your idea, your thought, your opinion, your pitch, and also your mannerisms, which I know maybe sounds a little weird, but how you really just carry yourself, your confidence, your presence, how you're showing up in a room or on a Zoom, and really reading the room, knowing your audience. Brenton and I have a very friendly banter and relationship as coworkers. That might look a little bit different if we had our C-suite on the call and we really needed to listen a lot more before we came off of mute and presented ourselves on the Zoom here. So I would say that's one that surprised me. I didn't think I would get to that point in my career until I was much older. And it's something that I have found has been a really great way to get exposure earlier in my career of, hey, you have a great executive presence. You walk into a room, collected and calm, and you seem confident. And when you speak, it's to ask a good question or to raise a concern. It's not to speak for the sake of speaking. So I don't want that to sound limiting, but it's kind of just being aware, I guess, is how I would define it.
I feel like I could improve in that area, and hearing you talk about it makes me feel
No.
like I should level up a little bit. Thank you so much. I know we've gotten some questions, and I want to make sure that we're kind of getting through our next few relatively quickly, just because I want to make sure we get to some of those questions. Really hot take, really quick answer. Are there any like myths that you would like to bust about product marketing or misconceptions you'd like to clear up about a career in marketing?
Yes, I'll do it quickly because I know we want to get to Q&A. I will just say at the get-go that the misconception that marketing is not data-driven. I cannot think of one type of marketing, whether you're doing social media marketing, PMM, consumer marketing, sales enablement, literally any type of marketing. Marketing is a huge umbrella, right? That doesn't have performance metrics, sales goals, revenue targets tied to it.
Yes, I feel like so many people think that marketing is just like vibes-based creatives, like in a room, just doing
Yeah,
stuff to do it.
vibes are
And
good,
we're
but it's not.
looking at numbers all the time. Yes, awesome. And I know a lot of the folks on the call right now are entry level. So do you have any tips for people out there who are looking to gain entry level experience in product marketing or more broadly in marketing in general?
Yes. My biggest tip would be to reflect on your own experience, your own skills, your own personal interests back to the journaling. Think about what you enjoy doing. I'll give you a quick little laundry list of what this could be. This could be writing, creating content, interviewing people, like the tiny mic on the street. Literally, that could be turned into a type of interview skill with customers. Being curious about how sales processes work, organizing events, teaching others about a topic, having that kind of like teacher hat. Think about what makes you tick, what makes you seem curious, what you're like, I don't like doing that. And then read through entry level marketing descriptions. So coordinator, associate roles that have some of those attributes and see what, again, back to the apples to apples or maybe apples to oranges that maps to your experience. And see what makes you excited and what kind of entry level roles would align to your interests.
I love that. And, going off of that, when you think about new interns or new hires, if you had a magic wand that you could wave and give everyone one skill, what would you give them?
I have two, and they're probably not surprising based on my other
Okay.
responses
Two
today.
magic wands. Yeah,
Two
two
magic
magic
wands.
wands.
The first one, and I know that this is an answer where people say, "Oh, I don't like that." But the first one is public speaking. This now often means on Zoom, a form of public speaking for sure. In my experience, I've seen this to be a really great unlock for getting exposure at a company, especially if you're at a larger company. Raising your hand to say, I'm happy to speak on the webinar. I'm happy to speak in our internal company all hands on the project that we just finished. And, learning what makes you nervous, what makes you, like where you can learn how to, like feel more confident about the types of public speaking that you're doing. I would say that's one, especially for tech, there tends to be a lot of events and opportunities to do that. The second goes back to that executive point of how do you, present material to executives concisely and quickly. They want the 2 sentence overview, not the nitty gritty of everything. And that's a really hard thing to learn. It's something that you'll constantly learn throughout your career. I'm still learning that, Brenton. I'm sure you are too.
I'm a
Uh,
yapper. I give too much detail. I'm still
yes,
learning it every day.
absolutely. But those are the two I would say. And they're definitely honed over your whole career, not something that you learn at the get-go, but it's great to start getting practice in.
I love it. That's a really great note to end on before we move into the Q&A. I'll try to get to as many as we can. We did get a lot of questions. So, Emily Ann, I'll give you a readout too if any of these
Okay.
questions would be interesting for you later. But do you have any advice? You mentioned doing coffee chats earlier and networking generally as something that's important and has been helpful in your career path. Do you have any
Mhm.
advice for those coffee chats for the folks in the room?
Yes. Don't go in blind. Know who you're talking to. You don't need to wear a suit. You don't need to be super buttoned up, but know who you're talking to. Look at their experience online, see where they work. Explain to them why you reached out to them, like what about their experience makes them someone that you want to talk to. And have, I would say, at least 5 questions if it's a 30-minute chat, and tell them that you have 5 questions that you want to get to. One might call this an agenda in the corporate America world. You go in, you say, "Hi, it's nice to meet you." You have a 1 sentence overview of who you are, what you're looking to accomplish, and why you wanted to talk to them. And then you hit them with your 5 questions and say, "I would love to follow up in a couple of weeks or in the next month to tell you how my search is going," or just to say thanks for connecting.
Great advice. Okay, I love all of these questions. I wish we could get to all of them. I know we're not going to have the time, but we have a question from somebody who's asking about your kind of major journey. You mentioned that you changed your major a couple of times, and they're asking why you changed, particularly from public relations to marketing. And I think a lot of people think that sometimes those things are similar,
Yes,
and they're debating, whether they should change their major, they should add a minor. Can you talk a little bit about the decision of changing from PR to marketing?
absolutely. This is how my university was set up, is that public relations was in the College of Liberal Arts and marketing was in the College of Business. Why that's the case, I'm not quite sure, because they do sometimes seem to be hand in hand, and there's a lot of skills that I saw my PR friends learn in terms of like website and responses to disasters or whatever it may be that I didn't get that coursework in. So I would say think about that in terms of what you really are looking to do in your kind of jobs after school. I personally changed to the College of Business because I felt like there were more business acumen skills for me to learn, even if I didn't want to go down that major. Let me give you an example. There's finance, econ, accounting. Do I want to do those things in my day-to-day life? Not quite, but it was great to have the coursework paired with marketing on my, credits list, and that I was in the College of Business. It was very outcome oriented. It was very network oriented, where for me in my school, PR felt a little more like softer skills that was going to be, unless I wanted to do PR, was going to be a little bit harder to navigate the next step of like getting a job in whatever I wanted to do. So like marketing, umbrella is very large. PR major, unless you really want to do PR, felt a little more limiting.
Yeah, that's a great overview. Here's a fun one. How do you feel about the work-life balance of product marketing as a job? Do your hours fluctuate or are they fixed? And this person said awesome career spotlight as well. So there's a little nugget for you.
Thank you for the awesome question. Work-life balance at Handshake, 10 out of 10. I am about 2 months in, so I feel confident in that answer. As a PMM, I would say your work is very project and initiative based. There might be some quieter seasons, some busier seasons for Handshake that looks like, you know, fall recruiting, spring recruiting. We do more events and programming, and then maybe in between, there's more stuff that's just turned on online. So I would say that the hours is not something like you would compare to investment banking where you're staying up working on a pitch deck until 3 a.m. It's definitely not the vibe, the same vibe. Um, and I would say that you, at least my experience in PMM for tech so far, has been that you get your work done, you block off your calendar for the priorities, and unless you have hopefully not a toxic situation, you're not staying at work in a super late fashion.
I love it. Well, speaking of staying on time, I know that we are supposed to wrap right now. I only had you for
So
30
many good
minutes, Emily. I know
questions.
we got so many good questions. I will send you all of these in case you want to
Okay.
post more answers on the Handshake feed. Maybe folks can find
Yes.
you afterward. I know we shared your profile so that folks can follow you there. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us such a great overview of product marketing. Thank you to everybody in the audience for joining in for such great questions. I promise we will use them to inform more events like this, and we will be sending a recording of this session as well, because I know that Emily Ann shared so much great intel. If you have a moment, please take 30 seconds to fill out our feedback survey so that we know what you want to hear more of in the future. And with that, that's it for our Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody. Happy Halloween for those who are going to be celebrating tomorrow.
Great.
Thank you so much. See you later, Emily Ann.
Bye.